As much as I wish I was a totally perfect writer who could just write without fault and write a perfectly formed, thought out, layered, nuanced story with the best pacing and the best characterization in the first go, I'm certainly not. And my biggest weakness is the second half, but that is what editing is for, and that's what we're working on fixing this week. So welcome to part 4 of my 0 to first draft editing series, where I am taking my bare bones, messy zero draft of my romantic science fantasy and turning it into a readable, decent first draft that is ready for alpha readers. Hi, hello, how are you? I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Maddie. I'm a multi-genre author working on a romantic science fantasy. And if you are not new here, thank you so much for coming back. It means the world to me. If you have not watched episode 3 of this series, I'll leave it linked up here so you can go check that out. Well, you can start from the beginning of the series if you would like. But episode 3 is the start of my retroactive outline and building the timeline to make sure all of my travel times make sense and to make sure that the amount of time it takes for certain story beats to happen makes sense and still feels natural, even though of course things do have to be a little bit more condensed just in the nature of storytelling. And I ended my last vlog when I reached the midpoint, which I'm really happy with because I really wanted to explore identity in terms of how we perceive ourselves, how we wish to be perceived, and whether we can live in that role or perception and just ignore the sum of our parts that make us who we are. And at the midpoint, the characters find that who they want to be perceived as fulfills a need for the other person. So they are very eager to step into these roles and ignore everything else. And of course, the second half is about seeing if that is sustainable or if the lies and the ignoring and all of that do catch up to you or not, and the fallout from ignoring so much of ourselves. So I'm really happy with that midpoint. And I've also raised the external stakes as well for that external plot that is driving a lot of those action beats. Now with the second half is going to be where the real work comes in, because this is where I have a lot more notes rather than prose for what needs to happen. So I think it'll be a little bit more involved than the first half was, but I know that I can do it. And it is just about sitting down and making that happen. I have a London fog with oat milk because I do think that that is the superior milk to set the mood. I will light my candle and take a look at what I have left for myself in the second act of Project ACOS. Hello, I have writing updates to share with you with Project ACOS, and in my zero draft, I had 28 chapters and an epilogue, so I'm just gonna 29 chapters, and my first half went through chapter 18, so I only had 11 chapters for my entire second half. And in the process of creating my retroactive outline for the first half, I expanded it to 20 chapters, leaving my second half even more small and puny. So I did my first chapter after the midpoint and it was pretty good. You know, I didn't have to make too many edits, but I took the next 5 chapters and I read through them and I expanded it into 11 chapters. I had to change around some scenes because some of the scenes were really important and I really enjoyed them, but they were just happening at the wrong point, and I had to make sure that they fit organically with these new scenes and minor plot beats that I have now included. And I did all of that work by hand. So now I'm in the process of translating all of those notes and mixing of scenes into my retroactive outline. Yesterday, I spent an hour and I believe I only got through like 2 chapters. So it's definitely taking a little bit longer, but I know that it is worth it. It's really what the story needed. It is feeling a lot stronger, even just the notes I have written down on like the backs of pages of the zero draft. So it is time well spent. And I think if I really just like push hard, I can get that done within the next few days here. And then we can do the same thing for the third act. Though I did originally use Save the Cat, I did make some adjustments, and as I've started to think about the story and when things happen, I realized that I've kind of been thinking about it in terms of a 4-act structure. Does that matter a lot? Not really, but that's just how I've been thinking about it, as like what I'm working on right now is like the 3rd act, and then when I move on to the last quarter, it'll be the 4th act. And I think I've been thinking about it that way because there is such a tonal shift in that last 75%, and I really want to make sure that it feels earned and it is satisfying, and if not cathartic, it is raising the stakes even more so. On Mondays, I do have writing sprints, but I do have a few things I need to do. I have to finalize my weekly Ko-Fi author diaries, and I am going to share some of the like early notes from this story from like 3 years ago. And in fact, if you go way back on my channel, my world building vlog was about this world. And it's really interesting to see there are things that have stayed the same over the course of this like 3 years of setting it up, putting it to the side, trying to work on it a little bit last year, really running into a wall, and I shelved it until now where it just like, this is its time. This is the time for Project ACOS to come into fruition. And it's really interesting to seeing all of the ways that it is just fundamentally a different book. And yet I am so thankful for all of that like pre-work that has been years in the making. And it's a lot of fun to see how my approach to not only just like the technical aspects of writing, but to my approach to story as this more like ephemeral idea of exploring the human condition and how these high concept worlds can amplify that message. So it has been really funny to see those initial thoughts for the characters and what they were originally going to represent and how they were going to act in the world, and just how much all of that has changed. So I just thought that that was funny. And that is one of the things that I really do enjoy about this kind of like archiving all of the work that I do. I can go back and I have this like video library of the type of writer that I've been. My SD card was full, so I don't know exactly where it cut off. Obstacles I've overcome, wins that I've been able to create for myself, and then keeping all of my notes. Like I have all of my early drafts of TCF and I have the early files on my computer, and it is really cool to see growth, especially because writing is not instant gratification. It is a marathon, and you have to keep pushing and learning and readjusting. And since that is so time consuming and you're doing it day by day, you can't always see the improvements you're making. So I do like having those reminders that I can just find like this. I just kind of chanced upon it because I was going through old files to clear up some space on my freaking computer. That was just a lot of fun. And I realized just how much more I love this story, how it is now. Like, I do think that all of the struggles that I had in bringing it to life, it was all worth it, because this is how it's supposed to be. This is the story as it was meant to be told. And that's just like a really nice feeling. So yeah, today I would like to get at least 2 chapters in, and I do need to finalize my author diaries for Ko-Fi, which I have linked down below. I've also started taking some notes for my newsletter that will be going out in April, so trying to be a little bit more proactive instead of reactive in getting it out. And if you would like to sign up for that, that is linked down below as well. Little self-promotion here. And I have some work to do on social media because I really want to make sure I'm improving upon that and not just, again, like I'm really trying to get out of this reactionary mindset and build something that is proactive and that is giving me my best shot at finding readers, building an audience, and connecting with people, and using those platforms to hopefully have my work connect with people as well. So that's what I've got going on this evening. We'll see how much I get through because even saying that list, like that's a lot to start at 6 o'clock at night. And I haven't had dinner yet. So I have to take care of myself in between all of that work, but I, have been yapping for a few minutes. So I'm going to actually get to work and not just talk about it.
Hello, happy Tuesday evening. I decided to get out of the house because I am just feeling exhausted. I've been pushing really hard, and when I get home, I need to edit my YouTube video or at least get a good chunk started. I might wait to finish it tomorrow because I don't want to just like rush through it to get it done and it's not as good as I know it can be. So, yeah, I just decided that like I need to get out of the house. But I forgot today is St. Patrick's Day, and I'm definitely not wearing green. Whoops. But Mr. Maddibluhme is doing like a big DIY is doing like a big home improvement project fixing the dryer. So I'm going to pick up a few packs of magic cards for him because he's like a big magic player. Hopefully I find some good ones. I don't know. We'll see what there is, and hopefully it's not too busy down here because, again, it is a drinking holiday and I do not really feel like being around crowds of people, but it is what it is. I guess I'll enjoy the outside world for a little bit, and yeah, that's my update. I spent more money than I was planning, but I did get a Smisky for myself, and then I got Avatar: The Last Airbender, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Spider-Man cards, and then like a shark dinosaur. So that seems like a good thank you gift for doing things I didn't want to do.
As you've seen, Tuesday, not quite my day. I was just exhausted and, dealing with like a broken dryer. It was just a lot. So I was very happy for my little excursion into the world. I was very lucky that the street that the nerd store was on didn't have any bars. So it was very quiet. Everybody else was elsewhere drinking for St. Patrick's Day. And then yesterday I started the day not really feeling it. And then I hit like this afternoon slump and I did not want to do anything. I just wanted to crawl in bed and stay there. But I really, really want to finish this outline this week so I can start rewrites next week because that will put me 1 week ahead of schedule and I'll just have more time for the writing. And since I didn't account for any off days in Pacemaker Planner for this next round of writing, having that extra week will give me a few days of I need a rest. So that's the goal. So I did force myself to go to sprints yesterday because it was Wednesday. I was very, very glad that I did because I did find motivation, and I think sometimes it's nice to just be working near or around other people, even if you're not working together. And just having like those little chats in between the sprints was like a good mood booster. So I'm really, really glad that I did that. And I was able to get a general mapping out for this fourth act of the book, which is very exciting. It is funny because I definitely had like easy, medium, hard for the re-outlining process, like acts 1 and 2, the first half of the book, very, very light. I only had to split apart that one chapter. So, it was mostly just making sure I had all the details with the notes that I had written and then clarifying the timeline and making sure that all made sense. And then for Act 3, I started with 6 chapters and I split that into 11 chapters. So just shy of doubling the length. And I really had most of the scenes already. I just had to add a few scenes and rearrange what was already existing to really make it pop. And then Act 4, the final quarter of the book, the flavor was there, but it was like a LaCroix, where it's just like a hint of a hint of a hint of a flavor. And it was only 3 chapters, I think like 10 pages. Very, very skimpy. So I ended up turning that into 11 chapters. Thankfully, I did have a bunch of notes for how to really make this final act pop and shine and do justice to this climax I'm trying to reach, and making sure that the climax itself was satisfactory, raised those stakes, had a satisfying enough conclusion for this first book while segueing into the second book, which will be the final. This will only be a duology. I think I was able to get there. So far for this final act, I've been really pushing for this feeling of resignation, and it feels a little bit tragic, while also raising the stakes and pulling the energy upwards for the climax in a way that feels satisfactory for a complete end, and also the beginning of what's next. Can we share a silent scream? I finished my outline. I have 44 chapters and an epilogue. I feel really confident in the content of those chapters, like the story beats and the emotional beats that I'm trying to hit, and the way that I will be able to play with and explore the themes that I really want to explore. I have been tracking my time just so I can see how much of my time I'm devoting to different work things, outside of like my job. So things like editing my YouTube videos, planning social media, the admin part of all of that, and writing and all of like the book stuff, just so I can kind of see, how much of my time I've been devoting towards these pursuits. And I didn't track in January. I started this in February. So from February 1st to it's March 21st, I've spent 60 hours of time on my book, which is kind of cool. That's about like 30 hours a month. However, with this rewrite process, I think that is going to shoot up because I'm at minimum 1,000 words a day. I am using Pacemaker Planner so I can alternate my word goals. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I have it set to write more because those are the days that I do writing sprints. So since I'm like body doubling, I think I can push a little bit harder than if it's a day where I'm just by myself after work or on a weekend. So that's kind of nice that it's not like monotonous. There's some variety, but yeah, I do need to be writing at least 1,000 words to stick with my deadline. But that will all be coming up in the next few vlogs, so we don't have to worry about that right now. This is all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching if you have made it this far. If you are interested in the writing process for this romantic science fantasy, then subscribe to my channel and come along for the journey. Leave me a comment about your writing process or creative process, or since it is, the start of spring, your spring plans, or just the pink tulip emoji. If you like this video, giving it a thumbs up would be super helpful. But thank you so much just for joining me. I have all of my things off of YouTube linked down below. I have my Discord, which I've kind of neglected it, but I am going to start posting there. My newsletter, which is my Substack, Ko-Fi, and my Instagram. Yeah. I think that's all I've got. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful week.